Hello, everyone. My name is Kelli Fritts. I am the Associate State Director for Advocacy for AARP Colorado. And I just wanted to introduce some of our volunteers at AARP, specifically Kathleen Flynn, if you'd stand up. She is our legislative coordinator. Kathleen. We also have a lot of our advocates here, and if I could have several of one behind me here too, just making sure. That's Greg, in case you wondered who that handsome guy was. That's Greg doing his beauty wave. Dr. Shirley Lowe, if you just wave. Dr. Shirley is our pharmaceutical expert at AARP, excuse me. Teresa Reed, Carol Pace, Jean Noffels. We have a new volunteer, and we're excited about her, Maggie. You just wave, Maggie. And next to her, Steve, also new volunteers, and they're off and running and terrific. Dennis Valentine. And over here, I saw someone too, Richard. I keep wanting to say Richard Evans. It's Richard Stevens. I had a friend named Richard Evans, and I keep wanting to say that. Are there any other advocates that I did not see? Well, great. Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming out today. I have a question for you guys. How many of you have a landline telephone? Landline, okay, wow, pretty much the majority. How many of you have VOIP? What? What are you talking about? This is I get this all the time. Okay, now of those of you that raised your hand when I said landline telephone, how many of you have that service through Comcast? You have VOIP. VOIP, voice over internet. Comcast is voice over internet. And this is a key conversation that we are having at AARP right now, and specifically because you guys may have gotten our flyer when you walked in today. How many of you rely on your landlines for stuff like 911? Just out of curiosity? Anybody? Yeah. Whether it's a landline or it's VoIP, you need that. What about this? How many of you think you're paying not enough in phone bills? Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I always get a laugh on that one. There are 4 bills being debated right here at the Capitol right now that deal with these issues and your ability to use your landline, your ability to call 911, and how much all of those services cost. For many years since I've been at AARP, and I'll just say this, I'm going on my 13th year, I've been working on telephone deregulation issues, whether I wanted to or not. Because for many years, in specific it was Qwest, wanted to deregulate their phone lines. And they use a lot of fancy words, and it took me a long time to get what they were talking about. Polar, VoIP, ILEC, CLEC. Woo, what does all this stuff mean? Well, for years and years and years, we were able to fight off this deregulation effort. And how we were able to do that is because basically it was Qwest, and then it was everybody else, all the other phone companies, AT&T, Verizon, everybody else. It was kind of MCI. It was kind of a territory issue. And they fought each other, and then basically those bills would die every year. Then about 5 years ago, we had a sponsor who really wanted to do something about this. And I shouldn't say we. The telephone companies had a sponsor that could really do something on that. And her passion really promoted this issue forward. And I appreciate passion. I disagree on the issue, but I appreciate it. Anyway, basically what it is to deregulate phones in Colorado. And again, we fought this off for years because they fought each other. Well, guess what? They all came together. All the stakeholders came together. Not consumers, I want to be very clear on that. We were not invited to the table, and they decided, for your benefit, that we should deregulate phones and that everybody should have a cell phone, and we need to get there fast, very fast. And I don't disagree, I like cell phones, I like the internet, I like technology, all of that is good stuff. But for a lot of people, they rely on their landlines. And that's why these bills are so important. So let's talk about these bills that I'm talking about today. 1328. All of these bills are sponsored by Representative Williams. I just want to say that. 1328 by Don Corman, Representative Williams, takes the money that goes to landline maintenance and defers it to broadband. I like broadband. I want broadband. Broadband is cool. I think broadband has a great future in this state, but currently the FCC is putting money into it. So does the Farm Bill put money into it. There's a lot of things, and there's a lot of private innovation that is happening in broadband without using your landline maintenance fund to do it. So that's 1328. 1329, remember when we were talking about VOIP? 1329 would say that VOIP is never regulated. It's not regulated now, by the way, but this would set it in statute so that it's never regulated. And you want me to tell you the number one problem with this? Well, there's actually two. If it's not regulated, you cannot call the PUC if you have complaints in regards to phone service. Currently, half of all the complaints the PUC gets, and I mean Public Utilities Commission, they work on your behalf, half the calls they receive are phone related. You'll no longer be able to do that. Like, again, you technically can't do it under VOIP now, but you'll never ever be able to do it. And the other piece about VOIP is unless they say it's regulated, 911 is not regulated in VOIP. And now, why is that an important issue? What does that mean? I asked a PUC regulator, let's just say someone fairly high up in the organization, what does that mean? And he said, think of that as like a private company. Okay, private company now is in charge of your 911. Okay, all right, that sounds great. Well, a great return for a private company would be about 95%, right? What if you're that unlucky 5%? What does that mean? That's why that bill is so important. That's 1329, VOIP. 1330, of all of them, this is probably the least bad of all the bills. It just is more or less a terminology bill, but it puts deregulation language into statute. That's what that does. And now here's the biggest booger of all of them. 1331 would completely deregulate phone service in the state of Colorado, period. You would no longer be able to go to the Public Utilities Commission. Certain people say, oh no, you could still do that. No, you wouldn't. Taking away their regulatory authority takes that away. Some say, well, then you could go to the Attorney General. Yeah, they don't have that ability to take individual complaints. That's not really their role. What it does is it leaves you to fight that out with the phone company directly. They say, well, this is no big deal. You guys should be okay because we could just re-regulate in a couple years. They have this provision in there called the clawback. And we could go back and we could re-regulate if this doesn't work. Well, how are we going to know if it doesn't work if we can't take complaints and there's no way to know if it's working or not working? How are we going to put that toothpaste back in the bottle? It's gone. I'd like to be telling you all the wonderful things that are happening in the legislature, and you can hear when they come through, they all tell you wonderful things. This is pretty scary what it does. And I would ask when they come up today, along with the good questions you're asking them, ask them, how are you going to vote on these bills? Talk to your legislators. You know what's happened? Last year, the entire House, every single representative voted yes on deregulation. You know why? Because they didn't hear from you. They need to hear from you. There's two concepts I want to leave you with in this whole subject: accountability and reliability. Your landline is reliable, you know it works, you know where it is, you can use it to call 911. We also need accountability. We need to know that we have a Public Utilities Commission that's there for us when we need it. And your legislators need to be held accountable in how they vote on these bills. So talk to them. Again, ask them, how are you going to vote on these bills? Again, 1328 through 1331. Don't let them just walk away and say, oh, yeah, I'm with you, and seniors, and woohoo. What are you really doing for us? This is when we need you. This is when we need you now, and we need you bad. And I want to invite up, Representative Sue Schafer.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you very much. Hey, good morning, seniors. How are you today? Isn't this a great day? My name is State Representative Sue Schafer. I represent House District 24, which is in Jefferson County. Where's Jefferson County? Let me hear you. Okay, my section of Jefferson County is Edgewater, Wheat Ridge, and Golden. And I'm just so, yay, hi there. Hi, John. Nice to see you. A couple of personal things first that I want to tell you. I have opted out of running for a fourth term, and I'm very sorry about that because I am very passionate about senior issues, children's issues, issues for the intellectually and developmentally disabled population. But we in elected office say we have to put our family first, but it's just been very difficult for me to do that. I have a new granddaughter in New York City and a couple of granddaughters in Fort Worth, Texas. And what has inspired me is that my daughters want to have a career. And my mother came and took care of my children, or helped me take care of my children, so that I could have a professional career and then a political career. So I owe it to my daughters and their husbands to help raise my granddaughters and pay it forward. Can some of you relate to that? I know you can. But I know there are a lot of people that will be elected that are very passionate about senior issues, and I was very pleased to have your support and your leadership last year for passing mandatory reporting of elder abuse. Also this year we had an amendment to that law to make exploitation of elders a felony. And so, yes, this is getting serious. It's a Class 3 felony if exploitation is over $500. It's a Class 5 felony if it's less than $500. And if there's physical abuse, sexual abuse, and other kinds of things, then those are covered under the assault laws. So I am very concerned about the bill that Kelly was talking about. Oh, Mr. Carter, hello. There's my hero. Do you all know Charles Carter? Give him a big hand. I have not made up my mind yet on this so-called modernized telecommunications bill. I have received a few memos from AARP about this, and I'm very concerned about it, but I need to read the bill and listen to the debate before I make a decision on it. But I am very concerned about people who might lose their landline, and the cost of going to this new bill as proposed. Is that going to increase the cost of a landline, if you're even able to keep your landline? What about people who have heart monitors and they need 911 services? I'm just not sure yet about this bill. So will you keep me informed? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I guess there's one other thing I would say. I'm very interested in an organization called Boomers Leading Change. Are any of you boomers? No? Not so much. Well, anyway, I am not resigning from political work, okay? I will be involved probably in Senior Power and Boomers Leading Change, the Jefferson County PTA, One Colorado for gay rights, other things like that. So thank you so much for coming down today, and thank you for allowing me to have a few minutes. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Representative, for coming down. Thank you. Good morning again, everybody. I'm Rich Mauro, and I'm Legislative Liaison, which is a secret word for lobbyist for the Denver Regional Council of Governments. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of more pieces of legislation that I think you might all find of interest. So Denver Regional Council of Governments, which we also know affectionately as DRCOG, is also something called an Area Agency on Aging. So we're another type of AAA, if you will, that is charged with providing funding for services to older adults to help them age as long as possible independently in their own homes, which is where I think most people want to be. And so we work very much with Kelli and AARP and other senior advocacy groups and senior lobby. I work with their legislative committee to work on legislation that impacts seniors. And so I think all of you have seen, or most of you have seen, this sheet in your packets. And we may talk about a couple of the bills on here, but before that, there's one actually very major bill that's not listed on here because it's so big, and that's what they call the long bill. Are you familiar with that term? How many people are familiar with the term the long bill? Few folks. The other way they call it is the long appropriations bill, and it's literally a very long bill, but it's the state budget. It's the general fund portion of the state budget. And so that is the bill where the legislature and the governor decide, with some of our help, how to allocate all of the revenues that come into the state from things like sales tax and income tax and so forth. So it's a very important bill. And it's often said that budget documents are moral documents as well because they reflect the priorities of our society and of our government and as to where we put money. So what we do, one of the main things that I've been doing, and Kelli and others that we've worked really hard on, is to make sure that the state puts a priority on seniors, on older adults, and on services to help them age gracefully, if you will. And one accomplishment that we were able to achieve this year, the budget that has passed the House and gone over to the Senate, which, let me back up a minute, that's one of the reasons why all of the legislators that you've seen come through here have all been representatives. And that's because the long bill is now over in the Senate, and I think they went to caucus on it to talk about the various issues. So they're all tied up. I don't know if they're going to break anytime soon before we're done to come over here. But that's just kind of the perils of doing this event is we're somewhat at the mercy of the legislative process. But anyway, that bill that they're discussing has an increase of $4.5 million in general funds for services for seniors that a number of us worked very hard on to convince. Well, okay, come on down and let me, you do it better than I do. A number of us worked very hard on really impressing on legislators the importance of the state really investing in our seniors and investing in services now, because you heard mentioned the silver tsunami, which is a term of art that demographers use as more and more people age in this state. The state needs to really be positioned to help provide the supports for those folks. And Jayla is going to give you some good examples of what that means.
I'm Jayla Sanchez Warren. I work with Rich. I'm the director of the area agency at DRCOG. Hi, many of you have seen me before. So how many of you know the Meals on Wheels program? Meals on Wheels? That's one of these services. How many people know about the transportation? You see those little senior transportation buses? Seniors Resource Center in Jefferson County, A-Lift in Adams County. Those are all programs. Programs to help people with chore services at home, with homemaker services, house cleaning. It's all of those things that help you live independently in your house, right? Yard work and chore, keeping the house clean, and support for caregivers. How many of you have been caregivers or currently are caregivers? It's an easy job, isn't it? Yeah. One of the toughest jobs you will ever do. And it pays so well. And it pays so well. These programs that we're fighting for help people live independently in their homes and communities for as long as possible. That's our commitment as area agencies on aging. There are area agencies on aging all across the state. 16 of them. So if you aren't in the metropolitan area, please look up your area agency on aging and learn about how they can help you. Learn about this. If you're 60 and older, you can qualify for these services. So please, if you're struggling with something, call your area agency on aging. These programs, with a little tiny bit of money, so we can keep people. There are people, no more government. I understand that, but let's do the right size government. So we can help people stay at their homes for about $350 a month. Very frail people. We can provide Meals on Wheels 5 days a week. We can provide a couple of trips to the doctor or the grocery store or to another important outing. We can provide a couple of in-home services for $350. If you have to go to an assisted living on Medicaid, if you pay privately, you're going to pay anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 a month. If you are on Medicaid, it costs the taxpayers $1,400, almost $1,500 a month. For nursing home, it costs almost $5,000 a month. This is the lowest. So these services help individuals stay at home and live as independently as possible. Yeah. No, I agree. That's what I'm telling you. We want you to have a choice. That's our whole goal. Senior support services. Oh, there was a question about homelessness. Homelessness is rising in the older population and definitely for veterans. One of the programs we fund through the Area Agency on Aging and through these critical dollars in the long bill that we're talking about is a program for at Senior Support Services for homeless veterans. It is an amazing program, and they're working really hard, but I'll tell you, it's a busy place. It shouldn't be a busy place. It shouldn't. This shouldn't be an issue, but it is, and so we have to work on it. Yes?
As a veteran myself, I have to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there homeless veterans?
The question was, why are there homeless veterans? And I think there's a lot of different answers to that. There are veterans that definitely have had physical challenges, have had addiction challenges, and for one reason or another just didn't have the support they needed to keep them living in a home environment. And that's what we need to do with these individuals, is we need to put a package of services together to get them on their feet. And that's what this program at Senior Support Services does. We help them find a home. We help them find a job. We help them get their benefits. We help them deal with addiction issues, those types of things. Those kinds of services are really important. So Rich is going to tell you about, but this one is very important, getting the increase for the older Coloradoans, or increase in senior funds for...
State funding for senior services.
State funds for senior services. We want to keep on growing. That population, the aging population is growing growing fast, right? That's a good thing. It's good to age, right? Celebrate your age. What's yeah, it's a good thing. What's the alternative to aging? Death. It's good to age. Senior power. Look at your button. Thanks.
Thanks, Jayla. So along the same lines that we were just talking about housing, I thought I'd bring up Brad to talk. about some bills going through the legislature that are addressing affordable housing, and also tell us a little bit about your coalition, too. Sure.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Brad Wood. I am with an organization called Colorado Impact. We're a new nonprofit that's working with the community, and some of my folks are here today. And we started a coalition called the Within Reach Coalition. The name came out of the idea that there's a report every year that says out of reach, and it talks about how out of reach affordable housing is. So we decided to turn that around and say, no, affordable housing can be within reach for all of us. We are supporting a bill. It's called House Bill 1017. It is the first bill on your little spreadsheet here that they provided for you from Senior Lobby. This bill does two things. One, it creates a state low-income housing tax credit. Now, why is that important? Right now, we have a federal low-income housing tax credit, and that is something that developers use to be able to finance affordable housing. The agency that administers that credit gets 3 times as many requests for that tax credit as they have available funds through the federal government. So by creating a state low-income housing tax credit, we're going to be able to double that, which means twice as many affordable housing units will be able to be built in the state. The other part of this bill is creating a state housing trust fund. That's something that some of us have been working on for a long time. And it looks like this year it's going to be a reality. That state low-income housing trust fund will be run through our state division of housing, and they'll do grants and loans to build more affordable housing units in this state. We've already been able to secure this year $23 million that's going to go into that state housing trust fund to build more affordable housing for the state of Colorado. The bill right now, yes. The bill right now is waiting to be heard in our Senate Appropriations Committee. The bill's already passed the House and already passed one committee in the Senate, so it's just got a few more steps to go. So if you run into any of your senators today, we know they're busy, but if you can ask them to support that bill, it's House Bill 1017. We're proud to say that many of the folks here in the room are part of the Within Reach Coalition. We have got a very diverse group. We have over 50 organizations supporting it because they all recognize how important affordable housing is to the entire community. So we ask for your support of that bill as well.
Thanks, Brad. We appreciate it. And we've had another legislator come and join us, so I'm going to introduce her to you. Kathleen Conti is from Littleton, correct? Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, or I guess we are still morning. Thank you so much and welcome to the Capitol today. I hope that you're enjoying your time here. I hope that you're learning a lot and enjoy the incredible, beautiful building that we have that is truly does belong to the people of the state of Colorado. And I hope you consider it your house and that you can enjoy your time here. I don't know if there's any questions that anybody has for me of anything that you've seen, or I'd be more than happy to address that or any concerns or anything that anybody wants to, but I'm happy to be your servant today to answer anything that you want to know, or if I can help out in any way. Question in the back, sir. Deregulations of the phone. I can tell you that those are bills that have just come across the desk, and I have not taken a look at the language on them yet. They have not hit my committee. I have not even talked to a lobbyist about them, but I have heard from the seniors that they are not happy with them, and I will certainly... And I can tell you that I have a lot of seniors in my district, and I certainly respect and will take into account their opinion on those bills. I have, and keep in mind that bills as they come out in original form, frequently look quite different by the time that they get to the end of the sausage making process. So I will try to get with the lobbyists from AARP and other senior lobby groups to find out if there are specific clauses or things that we can change to make that palatable so that it will not impact or harm our seniors in any way, because I am very respectful of that, and I want you to know that. I want you to know that I have also contacted my representative in Washington to tell him the fact that food and fuel have been taken out of the inflationary index for our Social Security is deplorable. That to deny that is a part of the inflationary index is absolutely inexcusable. I said to think that people can live without food and fuel, please. Let's get real. And so please know that I understand. I have numerous seniors on my campaign team. I hear their voices on a weekly basis during the campaign. I hear about the struggles that you face, and I certainly am. My mother is my biggest senior lobby in my life, the age of 75, and I do hear from her on a frequent basis as well. And so trust me, you are near and dear to my heart, and I always desire to stand with you and to serve you. So thank you so much today, and I hope you enjoy your time here at the Capitol.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate it.
He told me to say that he comes from a military family, so he's from everywhere. Lieutenant Governor Joe Garcia.
Okay, well, good afternoon. I always get the great gift of being able to talk to groups as they come from different communities and around the state to the Capitol to kind of see what we do here and to meet their elected representatives. And so I get to meet people from all over with very different interests. And I get to tell them a little bit about myself. Most people don't know who the lieutenant governor is. You know, it's kind of a low profile role, right? I mean, how many of you even knew you had a lieutenant governor, right? Much less who I was, you know? So I always think it's like being in the federal witness protection program, you know? It's, you're kind of low profile. I go to funerals. No, I do other things as well. And one of the things I get to do with this governor is I work a lot on education issues. And I know education issues are important to the whole state, but I used to, before I became lieutenant governor, work in higher education. I had been president of Pikes Peak Community College in Colorado Springs. Most recently, I've been president of Colorado State University in Pueblo. One of the things I think is so important about education is it helps drive our economy. It is something that's important to all of us, I think, whatever our age, wherever we are in our career or in our lives, because it really shapes the entire state. One of the things that's good about Colorado, I think, is that we're one of the most well-educated states in the country. I mean, how many people knew that? That when you look at the percentage of adults over the age of 25 with a college degree, we're number 2 in the country. Number 2. That's pretty good, right? And yet, we've got a lot of room for improvement. Because where we do very well, first is among in our Front Range communities and among our white population, but among our minority populations and among our rural populations, we're not keeping up. In fact, in the Front Range and among our white populations, more than 53% have a college degree. But we get into some rural communities, and it's in the single digits. In the Hispanic community, it's about 17%. And we all know what the fastest growing demographic is, not just in our state, but in our nation. We need to make sure that we are doing a better job of successfully educating everybody, or there's nobody who's going to be able to fill the jobs that you may have retired from. There's not going to be anybody there contributing to the tax base that we all rely on so that we can get the services that we all need as we age. So we need to be very focused on that. It's not that education doesn't matter when we're out of school or when our kids are out of school. Education always matters. Now let me give you some good news about what's going on in this state. We've gone through a recession like everybody else in the country. 4 years ago, we were 40th in the nation in terms of job growth. Now we're up to 4th. We're doing pretty well. We have 4 communities in Colorado that are among the top 10 in the country in terms of startup businesses. That's another good thing. We're creating our own industry here. And to a large degree, we're creating clean industry. You know, the kind of industry that allows us to preserve what makes Colorado so special, you know, our incredible environment. But we also need to be very focused on and recognize that we have an aging population. We have it in Colorado, we have it nationally. We see baby boomers now who are moving into retirement, and we're seeing that's the fastest growing group in our state. Even though we continue to attract a lot of young people, we also see a significant portion of our population that's aging. And so we need to be very focused on what we do to support them, to support all of you. And I know some of you may be relying on various government programs. Others of you are probably just as active in supporting other people in your community. I know that among our aging population, we have a lot of community volunteers. I had something called the Governor's Commission on Community Service, so I work with the AmeriCorps program and Senior Corps. And we have a lot of retired folks who are giving back to the communities by participating in those sorts of programs. But again, we know we need to do more things. We know that in the governor's first year, because the economy was getting better, we were able to restore the senior homestead exemption that had been suspended for a number of years. We also have been able to recently work with the folks here in this building to create greater protections for elderly people who might be subject to abuse. Now, I can tell all of you here are still active and sharp, but that's not the case for everybody. And what we need to do is make sure that we're protecting those folks who can't protect themselves. So we need to have mandatory reporting of suspected elder abuse, because we don't want people who have given so much to our economy and to our state being victimized as they age. So again, I think that's positive progress that we're making here in Colorado. We're also, of course, continuing, again, to focus on, I think, again, the most important thing is building a strong economy. Now, I don't want to go on too much about that because I know you may have questions, and I only have about 15 minutes with you. So I'm going to kind of suspend my, I've got a bunch of prepared remarks, but I'd rather hear from all of you and to hear what you have to say. And I see one gentleman, a good friend over here, who attends every education meeting in the state, and I've known for a long time, Mr. George Walker. He never lets me leave a room without asking me a tough question. Well, I imagine, Mr. Walker, that this room, the folks in this room would react about the way the typical Coloradan would when you use the word tax increase. Nobody likes tax increases. But we also have to recognize that Colorado is 49th among states in spending on higher education. It's in the bottom half in spending on K-12 education. And the results, are not what we'd like them to be. I mean, we are not graduating enough kids. Look at it this way. Of 100 ninth graders, if we look at how many of those ninth graders will graduate from high school, 75 out of 100 will graduate from high school. 50 of those 100 will enroll in college. A third of those who enroll in college, about 17, will need remedial coursework. That is, they're not ready for college-level classes, even though they've graduated from high school and are enrolled in a college. And of those 50 who start, only about 37 will be back for their second year of college. We lose quite a few of them just between that first and second year. And of those 37, only about 22 will graduate from a four-year college within 6 years. So think about that, 100 ninth graders, 22 graduates, 10 years later. That's not going to fuel the economy that we all need. It's not going to provide the healthcare professionals that we all need. Those are the things we need to think about. So when you think about spending more, investing more in education, think about how you benefit. Yeah. Now, I don't know if everyone can hear the question, but it's how long our office, the governor's office, will support disability rights to make sure, and senior rights. And I think, if you want to make sure that happens, you do what you're doing here today. You show up. You show up and let people know it matters. I think we all recognize that it matters, and I think this administration has done a great deal, both for disability rights and senior rights. But it's done it because, frankly, we recognize that you're an important, not just an important voting bloc, but you're important to our economy and our state. Keep staying unified, raising your voice, letting us know what's important to you. But we are committed to it, and I am committed to it, partly because I'm getting older too. So, yes, sir. Okay, well, let me just... let me challenge, because civil rights and school segregation are kind of my area of study ever since I became a lawyer, went to law school many years ago. And what we saw after the Brown versus Board decision was not much change for many, many years, that states very much resisted. Eventually, the federal court stepped in and forced them to, again, to integrate their schools. And yet in the 70s and the 80s, we saw resegregation as people changed where they lived, as people moved to the suburbs and left urban centers to minority populations. And here in Denver, we had a very famous case in which the Denver Public School Board argued that we didn't have segregation because in certain schools, we may have had certain schools that were overwhelmingly white, but in other schools, they said, we have integration because we have both black and Mexican students. And so they viewed that as a sign of integration. Well, the Supreme Court said that's not integration. We have to look at those two groups similarly because they're similarly situated. But what we then saw was, frankly, very bad, poorly performing schools. Our kids were not graduating. When I say our kids, I mean all kids, especially those in urban school districts. Charter schools were not something I was wild about when they first came out because I thought they were guilty of creaming, taking the best kids with the most involved parents. And there's still some of that, there's no question about it. And yet one of the things I do get the opportunity is to visit a number of charter schools, like the KIPP schools, like the schools over in North High, like Regis, the Jesuit school, where they're overwhelmingly minority schools. They're trying to serve better our minority students who have not been well served. No matter how dedicated our teachers may have been, we weren't seeing the results that I think we want to see for our minority students. So charter schools are something that people in the state have already voted on. They've said, we want to see more innovation, we want to see more charter schools, but what we need to do is hold charter schools to the same high standards we hold our public schools and say, we want you to be able to admit every kid, including those with disabilities. We want you to admit kids whether they're low income or not, whatever language they speak at home, but we want you to demonstrate that you can raise the bar and increase the level of performance. And if they can do that, then again, I think we need to be open to that. We do need to avoid resegregation. We do need to engage more parents, and we know that's key. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Lisa Reeves, and my granddaughter had experienced that. She goes to a charter school, and she had an experience with one of the teachers there, and I thought it was really wrong. And one of the teachers told the students in that class that I don't really want to be here. You kids are from a low class. You know, in other words, she was telling them that they were Mexican and black and that she had to come here and teach them because they were low class. And see, I didn't think that was right, you know, and that made the kids feel very low down, you know, and that was a charter school, and that was really wrong.
And the unfortunate thing is that can happen at any school, and our job is to weed out teachers like that and say, look, we need teachers who are committed to student achievement and have high expectations for all students, again, whatever their background, and that is going to continue to be a challenge for us. Yep, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt a minute. If you can stick around for a couple minutes. Did he just, that we have a senator who's taking time out of the Senate caucus on the long bill to come talk to us. So I just wanted to give Senator Kefalas just a few moments.
And let's give him an, I'll relinquish my time to the good senator. So it's always a pleasure for me to get to share a mic with Senator Kefalas. He is someone who truly, I have seen for years, long before he was elected, really works hard in the interests of people, especially those who suffer from the effects of poverty. So my pleasure, Senator.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Well, thank you all very much for being here, and it's the first time I believe I preempted the Lieutenant Governor, so I'm not sure how I'm feeling about that, but he's an honorable man, so I'm sure he's okay with it. I want to welcome you to the state capitol. I'm glad that there's such a wonderful turnout. I want to express my appreciation to, among other groups, the Colorado Senior Lobby, which I think is an effective force. I actually do read the newsletter, and it does inform me in my decision-making. And I know Colorado AARP and other organizations that work with elders, with seniors. The Colorado Cross Disability Coalition is a great organization as well that works with persons with dealing with disabilities. I have to get back to the caucuses on the budget, but I just wanted to mention three things. First of all, I don't like this podium. So first of all, you know that we're working on the budget. The House passed the budget last week. We're working on it this week. Tomorrow it will be on the floor with second reading with amendments. And of course, the budget is important. Many of us view the budget as a moral document that should reflect the values of the common good of the people that we serve, the public interest. So it is my responsibility representing folks from Fort Collins, and I know there are folks from Fort Collins here, and I'm grateful for that we do our best to make sure that this document, this moral document, reflects the values that we care about, and certainly folks, elders, seniors, people living on fixed incomes, what we can do to support you all to be able to live in your homes as long as possible and in other settings. So that's one thing. I think Rich mentioned that within the budget there's $4.5 million increase to the Older Coloradans Fund, and I think that's very important, and I think Colorado AARP gets a lot of credit. The second thing I'll mention real quick, and sorry if I'm talking fast, but it's the coffee and I grew up in New York and things like that. The second thing is that I've been working on many of you are familiar with the Old Age Pension Dental Program, OAP Dental Program, which when we reinstated it back in 2012, it's been administered within the Department of Public Health and Environment. Well, because of the changing landscape regarding adult dental benefits, we've been working on a bill which I hope to introduce tomorrow, which is reorganizing the OAP dental program out of the Department of Public Health and Environment to the Department of Healthcare Policy and Finance, but ultimately these dollars will be disseminated through the AAAs, the Area Agencies on Aging. And for me, that's important because I think that'll be the best way to get these dollars out to folks who may fall through the cracks in a fair and equitable way throughout the state. So be watching for that dental care for folks that need dental care. The last thing I'll mention is Senate Bill 14, and I was instructed by Tracy Stewart that I'm supposed to wave this around. Yellow cards. Hopefully you received one. Senate Bill 14 looks to make some changes to the property tax rent heat rebate program, the PTC rebate program. And I think many of you know that for low-income folks, people on fixed incomes who pay rent or have heating expenses, this is a way to get some more money back into people's pockets. In this bill, Senate Bill 14, which is up in the Appropriations Committee next Wednesday, it does cost money. We're looking at that issue. But as much as you can do, if you believe in this, if you agree with what we're trying to do, to make this available to more seniors, to implement some changes based on a performance audit, to make some improvements to the program. But if you agree with what we're trying to do, please help me to advocate so we can pass this bill, Senate Bill 14, out of the Senate Appropriations Committee next Wednesday. Thank you very much. I'm just really thrilled and honored that you're here, and keep up the good work. Thank you. Yellow cards. Yellow cards. Yellow cards. Yellow cards.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Senator. Do you want me to, do we have them, or Tracy will take care of them? Okay, great. You bet. Thank you very much for taking the time out. The Senate, as I mentioned before, is having serious discussions now about the budget bill and where all that money's going to go. So I think that's really pretty much what I had on legislation. I don't know if anybody else has any other bills they want to talk about. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Ed to talk to you about a few more items.
Thanks, Rich. I wanted to talk a little bit about the senior lobby and what we do. Besides sponsoring the Senior Day at the Capitol, we have our legislative committee. It meets every Monday morning from 9:30 till about 11:30 when the legislation is in session. Then it meets every other Monday the rest of the year. The schedule, if you want to, you can find it on the webpage, coloradoseniorlobby.org, which is on it's actually shown on your badges, so you don't have to remember it. And anyone can attend those meetings if you want to sit in on them. We meet at 27th and Larimer in the VOA office. So that's one thing we do. We hold an annual meeting. This year it'll be in August. It's usually and this year it's on the third Saturday in August, and it's a little bit of business, but mainly it's a program on government issues and so forth. We testify at hearings, committee hearings, which is important. You know, if you got to get to them by the committee time. Communicate with state legislators. Then in the summer, we rate all the legislators on how they voted compared to the positions we took on bills. So that'll be in either the June or July newsletter that we put out. You can also, the newsletters are also posted online. And we do that. We have been out meeting with the federal legislators because one of the things we haven't talked about is that the Older Americans Act, which is out of Washington, funds a significant part of the Older Coloradans Act. You heard Jayla talk about that. And that funding is based on the 2000 census, not the 2010. Let me repeat, the 2000 census. The result of that has been that Colorado has taken the biggest cut of any state in the country because Colorado has a rapidly growing population. So we've been out talking to legislators, congressional people. So let me just very briefly, then I'll do this. We do put out the monthly newsletter. You all have a copy of that. It's in the packets. And the webpage we've talked about, the YouTube we talked about, and we do have training sessions occasionally. And last year we trained people, had a training class for how to communicate with legislators. With that, I'll let Guy talk about it. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Ed. So I wasn't here when Jayla spoke, but evidently she spoke a little bit about the Older Americans Act programs administered through the area agencies on aging. Louder? Okay. Is this working? All right. Thank you for the input. I'm Dutra-Silveira. I'm the Area Agency on Aging Director that serves El Paso, Park, and Teller counties. And I'm also happen to be the chairman of the Colorado Association of Area Agencies on Aging. So Jayla talked a little bit about the Older Americans Act programs and the funding increase that we were hoping to get to serve those over 60 throughout the state of Colorado. I think it's important that you know that the federal piece of legislation that does that, the Older Americans Act, is up for reauthorization. This is a time that we would really appreciate your support in contacting your federal legislators to not only support the legislation, but encourage them to mitigate the hold harmless provisions that are resulting in Colorado getting 18 to 23% less than it should to support these programs. We're very fortunate that the state of Colorado is stepping up as our senior population increases to support these programs, but we need federal help as well. And I am adamant that the elders in Colorado should have the same opportunity to live in their homes, age well with quality of life, and be independent as any other senior in this country. Thank you.
I want to talk about the lunch. The lunch is 2 blocks north on Sherman. When you go out the door, you just go straight down 2 blocks north to the church. And those of you who've paid, of course, it's okay. If you haven't paid, we always have a few extra lunches that we have there that you can participate in that. We do have a good program on that. That's going to be Jennifer Ballantyne, who's nationally famous for her work on palliative care.